Okay, this is Kim Nelson, FIT, doing a ring tutorial for Gin. Alright, so first thing I got to do is bring in a picture. So picture frame. This one? Or this one? This one. Okay. And I will put that, it doesn't really matter. I'll put it in the front view for now. And I will put it on a layer I don't tend to use very much. And I will change the properties of the material so that it is mostly transparent. Like so. And that will give it to me down here. Okay, so now I need to draw the ring. Oh no, there's no micrometer in here. There we go. Inside diameter men's ring. It's 19 millimeters by 2.7. Okay, double check that. 19. Yep. 19 by 2.7. So make the ring bore starting at 0, diameter 19 millimeters. Lock that layer so I don't select that drawing anymore, that photograph. Offset 2.7. So that is the basic ring diameter. To get an essence of how thick this is, I'm going to make the picture kind of the same size. I really hate gumball. Something like that. And then I'm going to orient 2 points. Reference point, quadrant, and quadrant off the oval I just drew. And that oval represents the inside of the ring, so the target will be inside. Oh, except for, it has to scale, yes. 3D. Again, quadrant, 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 quadrant. So that's about how big this ring is. So now that I have that, I'll draw a top view. Straight line, offset, through point both sides. I will take a look. With foreshortening, that's about right. Foreshortening means it's tilted, because I'm not going to see the full height because it's tilting towards me. So that's probably about right. We will extrude it out and see what we think, but I think that's about right. So I can turn this off pretty much now. Fill it. Join it together and move it up. And that's basically your ring, Jen. Okay? So now that I've got that, go into perspective viewport. I'm going to put this down on the ground where it goes. So rotate straight up, straight down, and move it back to here. Now every time you hear me click, click, Jen, I'm changing the C-plane. Front C-plane, right C-plane, top C-plane. Okay? I have keyboard shortcuts set up for that. If you don't, then you would have to come here, set C-plane, and pick world top, world right, world front. Or you can use gumball or whatever technique you're comfortable with. Yep, so you'll want to use this. So to slow that down again, this was like that. In order to rotate it down, I can't rotate it that direction in the top C-plane. There's no way. If I hit rotate in the top C-plane, I can only rotate it that direction. And I can't make it work in the front C-plane either, because if I rotate in the front C-plane, I'm going to get this. That's not what I want. So I need the right C-plane. And in that one, I can put it there, and then I'm just going to move it back to the middle. Because that's going to be important when I extrude this. Surface, extrude straight, solid, yes. Turn off grid snap. And then I can snap to either the end or the mid of this drawing. And that's your ring, basically. Take a look at that compared to photograph. I can even rotate this up to look at it in the same angle if I want to. Same way. And I think that's about right. Would you agree? So we're good with that. Now, when I actually make this, Jen, I'm going to go into 3D coat. And to go into 3D coat, I'm going to have to deform this. And to deform it, I'm going to have to clean it back up again. All that to say, I'm going to need a little extra material, both inside and outside, to be free with it. My question, though, is these stones. How do you want to do those? Are you going to try and model presets for those, or are you just going to let a stone setter put them in? One requires a lot of CAD modeling. The other one requires none. Because you would just take it to a setter and say, I want to put these diamonds in. And you would show him that picture and say, here's my model, or here's my casting. I want you to put stones in like that. And they would just do it. And that's probably how I would do it, because modeling presets, it doesn't make a lot of sense for this. Okay. So, but before I do that, I am going to make a ring with a little more material inside and out. What did I do with my drawing? I must have thrown it away, indeed. Okay, so I don't need a lot. I'm going to give myself maybe 0.5 millimeter inside and outside. And you will see why when I take it into 3D coat. Because I'm going to kind of mush it up in 3D coat. And I want to be able to get it clean again. So surface extrude, solid yes, and snap. Little chunkier looking ring, but that's fine. I'm going to export this out of here. I'm going to export it. You can export it as an STL or an OBJ. Usually going out of Rhino, I go OBJ. Coming back to Rhino, I go STL. So there's OBJ. Put it in Gin's folder.
So you have to come back to Rhino?
Oh, I will.
Oh.
I'll have to. So I'll put it here. Men's ring, OBJ. Just accept Rhino's default here. Make sure this slider is all the way to the side. So it's the densest mesh you can get. Okay? And actually, you make a good point about the Rhino thing. I deleted those curves again. That is so funny. I keep doing that. Every time I extrude, I throw them away. Oh, you know what? I bet I don't. I'll bet my rotten child does that. Let's see. Surface. Extrude. Both sides, yes. Solid, no. Delete equals yes. It's a little monster. He set it to throw away the curves. Okay. At least now I know why it was doing that. Don't let your children play with your Rhino. Okay. I'm going to create a cutting tool, Gin, so I can clean this back up in 3D Coat when I'm done. So to do that, I'm just going to offset this, the true outside of the ring. And I'll just make it thick. I don't care how thick. And the true inside I'll just use as it is. I'm going to extrude. Straight. Solid, yes. Only thing that's important is that it's bigger than that. I'm going to grab these two. Same thing. So I have like a cookie cutter that surrounds your ring. And the reason for that is that when I'm done in 3D Coat, I'm going to want a Boolean difference like this. And what that'll do is it'll bring back the original thinner normal ring. Okay? I need it like this to play with it like clay in 3D Coat, but I want to get it back to this when I'm done. So that's why I did that. I'm going to take these two and I'm going to export them as well as an OBJ. And I'll just go men's ring cutter. Z. Save. Okay. Okay. So now I have everything I've made in here in 3D Coat, available for 3D Coat. Now I'm going to open 3D Coat. Okay, once you come into 3D Coat, you want to do voxel sculpting, but you don't need to select that. You can just close this window. And it has several rooms in this software. The room you want is to sculpt, because we want to sculpt. I'm going to right-click on this folder, and I'm going to import object. And I'm going to go to this folder, and I'm going to import the ring. There are several choices here. You want to make sure it looks like this. You'll have the video. Import without voxelization, import as child, respect negative volumes. The only thing you want to change here is, or do anything, is hit auto scale. Auto scale will make it the right size to fit in the scene, basically. Hit apply. It's going to ask you, do you want to keep this the same unit scale and proportion when you take it back into Rhino? And you do. So hit yes. And then pick any of these tools, doesn't matter which one. and you will see your actual thing. Now to zoom in 3D Coat is Control, right mouse, drag. And you don't drag up and down, you drag right to left. I guess you can drag either way. Okay. Pan is middle mouse button. Rotate is just left click drag. Okay. I'm going to assign a material to it. So you come over here and you can click on any one of these. I like that one. And the first thing you're going to notice is it doesn't look like your ring. It looks like a balloon.
Yes.
It's because 3D Coat is for animation and it brings everything into the lowest resolution possible. We're going to right click on this and we're going to go Resample. Right now it has 468 faces. To have anything that's worth modeling, you have to have at least 500,000. So we're going to go to 500,000. I mean, if it's a tiny thing, you could do 200,000, but we'll go 500,000. Smooth. That looks better, yeah? Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to right click on the men's ring, import object. We're going to bring in the men's rings cutters. Okay. This one we are not going to auto scale because we want it to stay the same size. It will remember the scale and it'll make it fit. We're just going to hit apply. It won't give us a warning this time because it's not the first time we brought something in. We're going to hit smooth. And there it is. Unfortunately, they didn't line up, but we'll fix that in a minute. You'll see that you have two objects in here. I'm going to assign a material. I'm going to assign a material. Okay. They're all the same color, which bothers me. So I'm going to right click on one and it's going to have edit shader settings. I'm going to click on this color slider and I'm just going to pick a different color. Same thing here. Edit shader settings. Maybe I'll make that one blue. Just so it's easier to see what things are. And the same thing, I have to resample these. Resample, yeah, 400,000. It's not going to be my finished object, so that should be enough. And I'll do the same here. And there we go. Now I need to get these out from inside of this one. I want them to be separate. So I'm going to go change parent. I don't want it to be the men's ring or the object. I want it back up to root, which is this 5 you see here. Change parent to root. I want to do that so that these are each separate things. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. First thing I need to do with this now, if you hit the space bar, it brings up your tools. I want transform. When you have the software, transform won't be there. Transform will be over here. This is a set of 10 tools you can set up to what you like to use most of the time. You can drag any one of these and put it here. It's like a palette for a painter. These are just tools I use all the time. But all these tools you see on mine are all available down here. This is just where Kim likes to put the ones he uses the most. Transform. Okay, I can actually turn these two off. These eyeballs control visibility just like in Rhino. I want that to be, this gizmo, I want it to be in the middle of the center mass, which it already was. But I want it to go to the 0 of the world, in the center of the world. If I click this X, Gin, it'll move it there for me. Now it says 0, 0, 0, just like in Rhino. Okay? Now I want to do the same thing with these. Okay? I would like these to move together. So I'm going to put this object inside of or under that object. Change parent, object 2. So now when I turn this one off, I turn them both off. This is important because this way, when I move them, they'll move together. To center mass, 0, 0. Click that X. Now you'll see everybody lines up. I have a problem though, Jen. That's weird, Jen. I don't like that. It's a gap. That shouldn't be there, Jen. That makes me wonder what I have in Rhino. Nope, in Rhino there is no gap. It's right in Rhino. Did I export the fat one? Let's find out. Export selected. Men's OBJ ring. Yes. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Back into 3D code. File. New. Don't save. Please. Back to where we were. Sculpt room. Right click. Import. Object. Men's ring. OBJ. See, it rotated it this time. I don't know why, but it did. Apply. You know what? I don't like that it did that, Jen. I'm going to close 3D Code and start fresh. Because it's remembering things, and because it's remembering things, it can get it wrong. Every time you do a new file in 3D Code, just close 3D Code and open it again. It clears the memory. Sculpt. Right click. Import. Object. Men's ring. Well, fine. It wants it there, it can have it there. Auto scale. Apply. Yes. Now, I think what I may have gotten wrong is I resampled this before I brought the other ones in. I'm going to just leave it the way it is and import. Object. Open. Yeah, that looks a lot more centered. Apply. Yeah, that looks better. I will go ahead and change parents while I'm here. No reason not to. And I'll give these materials while I'm here. And I'll change the shader settings. And resample. $500,000. It looks like 5 million. That looks a lot better, Jen. Okay. And actually, I shouldn't have taken those away from men's ring. I'm going to put them back. Change parent back to men's ring. It doesn't look like it did, but it did. And I'm going to move things to the middle. already in the middle. Okay. Fine. All right, now if I wanted to rotate that up and around, I could rotate it here, or I can rotate it there, either way, but we're going to try and work with it the way it is to keep things less confusing. So, there it is. Okay. Now we need a picture. In 3D Coat, to get the picture, you come here and you have your background, and you can get a reference image. It's tricky when it says which axis. I wish it didn't, but it simply is confusing. It's the axis as it's going across. We're going to try X. I think X is the one we want. What I do, Jen, is if it doesn't work, I do another one. Reference image for X-axis. Documents. Image in. Oh, come on, there's a JPEG in there. I know there is. I know there is, because I put it there. All right. It says no. Oh, JPEG.
Oh.
By the way, you can do that. And you see an E in the middle, you can just take it out. All right. I thought I was crazy. Yep, there we go. It's kind of big. Then what you're going to do is come into here and background, edit image placement. Hit that little pin and it'll get you the controls for your image. Grab any corner. Grab any arrow. Oops, not you. Okay, men's ring. Oh, it can still be moved. It can still be moved. All right. I've got to make it a little bit bigger, just so I can grab the right handle. Because with the handles sitting on top of each other, that's good enough. To make this green frame go away, just hit the pin. So now I have an image to look at. And all this has, Jen, is a soft edge. That's all it has. That's the only thing that's special about it, is it has a soft edge. So to make a soft edge in 3D Coat, there are many ways. 3D Coat, by the way, is pressure sensitive. You still have one of these? Okay. Mine is fancier than it used to be. Now I can work on my screen directly. That's got glare on it. So I want to use a I'm going to try the move tool. Okay. So when you see a brush in 3D Coat, you'll see it has a circle and it has an arc in it. The arc is red, right? If I want to change the size of the circle, I hold down right click, which on my stylus is the back of this button, and I pull from side to side. If I want to change how deep it goes into the material, I hold the right click down and I go up and down. The flatter this is, the less impact it has. Okay? These are all available up here in radius and depth. You can enter it in numbers, but it's easier just to look at it. Now, the thing that's going to get tricky, because this hasn't gotten tricky yet, has it? Poor Jen. Is that all those things I told you about rotating with left mouse button, zooming, control right mouse button, and panning, middle mouse button, which I've set to the front of this. None of that works when you're going to start sculpting, because everything you're going to do is going to affect the model. So, you ever drive a manual transmission, Jen? A clutch?
No.
Ever drive a motorcycle?
No, they were.
Okay, so this reference is useless.
Okay.
But this is basically a clutch. When you hold down the Alt key, it means that it's going to act like there's not a model here. So you can use the same things. You have to hold down Alt and Control if you want to zoom. Okay? That's important because if you don't, you're going to start sculpting. Okay? So, we do want to sculpt. I want this to be subtle, big. So I'm going to make a big brush, and I'm going to make a brush that's not so high. And then you got to turn the material and I can pull up, I can push down, until I kind of get what I want. Now there are two camera ways to look at something in 3D Coat. This is a regular, like a zoom lens. It gives you perspective, but the perspective, like in a perspective viewport, can be difficult. So if I click on this little cube, it toggles between orthographic and perspective. And for modeling, I prefer orthographic because it really gives me a more accurate picture. By the way, in 3D Coat, if you hold down the Shift key, it will lock front view, top view, right view. I wish Rhino did that. That is very cool. But this will give me a clearer image of what I'm doing. Maybe I want a bigger brush. And you want to play with that and see what gives you the kind of effect that you get. Smaller brush is going to give you more of a small spot. Tall brush is going to come in and really push hard. Okay, so you've got to figure out how much you want. But does that look about what you want, or do you want more?
No, I think it's good.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do Because whenever I've done this, it's actually deformed it a little bit. You can't see it, but because you're actually pushing it down like a piece of rubber, it kind of squishes in and out. It looks fine, but it's not. And that's why we went to the trouble of bringing these bad boys. Because these bad boys are going to clean it up. To use them, I have to take them out from inside the men's ring. Back to root. Back to root. Okay. So I'm going to take object number 1 here, and I am going to subtract from men's ring. It's a Boolean, just like in Rhino. Take object number 2. Subtract from men's ring. Nice and clean. Okay, but we don't want those hard corners, Jen. So now we're going to use a smooth brush. Smooth brush will soften the corners. But now it's time to talk about the different modes in 3D Coat. See how this has an S? That means it's in surface mode. In 3D Coat you can work in 2 modes, surface or voxel. Voxel's a V. Surface is like a nylon stocking, like a mesh. It's just a surface.
Okay.
Voxels are like little sugar cubes, like 3-dimensional pixels. Anything that's a voxel is a geometric solid. Remember how in Rhino we would fight and fight and fight to make our models solid? In 3D Coat, if I touch this S and accept what it wants me to do, it's automatically a solid. The reason I did that is because as a surface, because it's only surface information, it's going to try and hang on to that corner, Jen. Even with a smooth brush, you're going to see a little bit of a seam, a little bit of a corner, because it's a surface and it's trying to be nice to you and preserve a corner. I don't want to preserve a corner. So this also has its brushes, has a smooth brush in here. And this smooth brush will eradicate the corner. Kind of like a fillet, only a lot more natural. And like the other brush, I can control how big and how powerful it is. Now see, even in voxel mode, it's trying to retain a little bit of that corner. It's annoying. By the way, if I go back into surface mode, it will have forgotten about the corner. Because in surface mode, it had memorized the Rhino model. When we put it into voxel mode, it forgets the Rhino model. Now we go back into surface mode, it's now making a surface off of the voxel object. So now that corner should be easier to remove. I'm actually going to hide the image for now. Just show hide. But see, I'm still getting crinkling around the corner. I don't love that. But I'm not going to worry about it. I'm more worried about the effect. And I like the effect. It has that ancient, soft look. Yeah, I liked it better in voxel. Yeah, definitely better in voxel. Some brushes work better in surface. Some work better in voxel. Sometimes it's hard to find things. I'm zipping around in 3D space trying to locate. If the camera does go crazy on you so you can't find what you're doing, hit all. And that'll refocus the camera on the whole object. Get rid of some of those ripples that were caused in surface mode. Now that I've just smoothed the corners, I'm going to decide how much softer I want it to go. This is pressure sensitive, Jen, so the harder I push,
Oh, yeah.
I can actually chew it completely away. I don't want to chew it completely away. So I was pushing very soft before. I'm going to come back with a little. That's exactly like clay. You want to try it?
Yes. Do I need to click on something?
Nope. Just draw on the corner. Yeah.
It's changed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much easier than Rhino, yes?
Yes. But it's look better.
Hmm? So you Control Z.
Okay.
You undo. Now try rotating the model. Hold down the Alt key. And then just take your left tip and touch the just touch it and drag like you would in Rhino.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how to pan?
Pan, and this button, it's on the front button of this.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to see.
Mm-hmm. That's why you...
But it has no reflect.
Yeah.
On this side, right?
Yep. And to rotate, remember, it's just left drag to revolve. You've got your finger on the pan button. Yep. By the way, you can change the direction of the light.
Oh, nice.
You-
It's easier to work on a
Mhm.
touch screen like this, right?
Yes. Well,
How much?
$700.
Ah. No.
But it works the same on a Wacom.
Yeah. But it looks more fun.
Yes, it is more fun. Cheaper than... If you buy the Cintiq, which is the Wacom, this is the Chinese version. This is the cheap Huion version.
Uh-huh.
If you get the if you get the Wacom version of this, it's $3,000.
Wow.
More than 3 times as much. So if you're going to buy one, buy a Huion.
Okay. S-U-I.
Yep.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, they're Chinese. They're the best Chinese brand. Their tablets like this.
Yeah.
Wacom, this tablet costs $400 brand new. Huion, it's $79.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah.
Okay.
So taking a look, seeing if there are any hard corners left.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit there. Careful, Kim. Because if I go too hard, it'll actually go all the way through. I'm using a pretty big brush. Now if I don't want it to do that, just back down the size of the brush. That's probably the smartest thing to do right now. Because if the brush is that big, I can actually push through and it'll actually affect the outside. As thick as this thing is, as big as that circle is how much influence it has. So I want to be careful that I don't punch through and hit the other side. That side right there is hard to see. So, still going to be, there we go. Oh, it was good. It's hard on this model because it's a ring. It's a circle, so it all kind of looks the same. Go back and look at the bottom. But yeah, this is just using the smooth brush. This is pretty boring. There are not so many things in the voxel mode, but in the surface mode, take a clay brush, give it some depth. By the way, if I hold down the control key, see how it goes blue?
Yes.
That means it reverses the direction.
Oh,
So instead of adding,
nice.
it cuts.
Now I like 3D code.
Yeah, you can have a lot of fun. What 3D Coat doesn't have is,
It's like sculpture.
yeah, 3D Coat has no precision. So that's why you want to make your blocks in Rhino, because then you know how big the block is, you know what the shape you started with is, then bring that block into 3D Coat, make it clay, play with it. That's how the monkey ring was done. That monkey ring I wear all the time, yeah, the helmet's all Rhino, the face is all 3D Coat.
Oh.
But the face was just blocks of Rhino when it started, and I just took all the corners off and sculpted it.
Yes, yes.
So is this good enough, you think?
I want more,
Well, I'm in clay. Don't do that. Now you'll see there's a little bit more of a texture left by the smooth brush in surface mode. Ignore it. In real life, you'll never see it.
actually I want more, torn paper filling.
More of a torn paper feeling along the edge.
Yes.
Okay. The challenge is going to be we already cut it with
Oh, okay.
we have no way to
Uh-huh.
restore it now.
I thought it's enough, but I want more.
So you get to do that on your own.
Okay, okay.
All right?
Sure.
But let's now show you how to take it back into Rhino. I mean, if you're not going to use it, we don't care. I mean, that's the thing. If you're not going to use it, then we can go ahead and come into Move Brush again. You want to try Move Brush? You basically just touch it and it grabs it, and then you can push it or pull it. Can you imagine doing that in Rhino?
No, impossible.
$99.
Yeah. This is very fun. Huh.
Okay, and then bringing it back into, oops, I took the headphone off. I've got to keep that on or you're not going to hear any of this. Taking it back into Rhino, you just right click on it when you're done and you hit export. Export selected. And we're going to put it in the same place, but remember when I bring it into 3D Code I use OBJ. When I go out of 3D Code I use STL. That's just an organizational thing, Jen. OBJ and STL are the same thing. They're the exact same thing. The only difference is OBJ is usually used in animation and games. STL is used in manufacturing for 3D printing. But what you get is exactly the same. But bringing it into by doing it this way, I can tell them apart. When I look at it on my computer, I can see if it says OBJ, that it's something I brought from Rhino into 3D Code. And if it says STL, I know it's something I've taken from 3D Code back into Rhino. It's going to ask if I want to simplify the mesh. I have people buy 3D Code just for this because it's one of the best mesh optimizers available. Right now the mesh is 400,000, which is really not very much. You can change this mesh up to 85%. I'll take it 80. Makes it 81,000. That's almost nothing, Jim. And hit OK. And it's gone. Now we go back to Rhino. File import. And there it is. Now remember, it'll be thinner because we cleaned it up. But if we take away the orange object and we just look at the circles, not those are the outer circles, the inner circles. Oh. Hang on. Because I know it's right. It never is wrong. So we'll go back and just reestablish those two circles. What do we say, 19? Oops. Yeah. And then offset 2.7. Somehow we lost those two curves. Because my son has Rhino set to throw away curves every time I extrude, that's why. It's right on. Same thing from the top. Here's your green box that gave you the size. And there it is. And that's how it looks shaded. And if we emap it, polished gold. Soft edged and kind of random. Make sense? So that's all there is to it. That became that. So I'll save this file. And I'll save this for you as well. Of course, you can't open it without 3D Code, but the file extension for 3D coat is 3B. There you go. And that is that.